Hey, welcome back to the SBP Podcast Mobile Filmmaking. I'm your host, Susie Botello, and you are listening to episode 192. Hey, friends, I've got Dhwani Shah here with us today, and she is in New York.
I am so excited to be with you virtually on this podcast.
And not only is she a listener, but she's also a filmmaker. She's been in our film festival in San Diego. We all enjoyed a lot of tacos together in San Diego. And I have some news for you guys. Not only is she an award-winning filmmaker based in New York, who oscillates between horror films and grounded dramas, and worked on numerous commercials and branded content, but her heart lies in narrative fiction. And of course, as you can tell, I read that from your website. But she's also the first place winner for 2024 International Mobile Film Festival's short film competition. Congratulations. Yay!
Wow, you make me sound so good. Can I carry that? I'm gonna carry this little podcast recording around wherever I need to introduce myself to people in networking events and just cue this instead, because this is much better than me approaching someone with one shy handout.
Aww.
I am so excited to be here. I have to say the film festival was amazing. Me and the whole crew had a blast in San Diego. You're a fantastic host. And yes, we did consume a lot of an unhealthy amount of tacos, and it was not even Tuesday. But this is really exciting. I'm so glad we're having this chat.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have you here. We never get to talk enough with the people that we fall in love with at the film festival. So this is another way of having that big talk, you know. You had a great experience, and I could tell you had your, why don't you give a shout out to your crew for your film Sapling?
Yes. So my short film that I shot on the iPhone is called Sapling. And I was attending with my producer, Lydia Muir, my lead actress, who is just like an adorable human being altogether, Mila. And we had Ellen there, who helped out with casting and a bunch of different aspects of production. And it was just this girl gang. And we were just really happy to be attending a film festival, in San Diego, where we got to do a little road trip afterwards.
Yeah, I felt like we were in a movie.
It really did. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, really, the whole experience, the people, right? The filmmakers that were there, and the participants, the judges that were there, Levi Austin Morris and Jeremy Gladen.
I have to say, it was, I mean, mobile filmmaking on its own is a super innovative format. But the fact that there was such a diverse selection of films, the festival really fostered this very inclusive and welcoming environment. And you had planned all these panels that were incredibly insightful. And, there was just so much inspiration to gain in those amazing 2 days that we were together.
Yeah. And then we also had the Q&A with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to share part of your story about the making of your film, which is a great segue. Hey.
Yay. Hey, my film, right?
Yeah.
Love talking about my work. Not like I have the imposter syndrome at all. Well, I am sheathing it. But no, Sapling it's actually been in my, arsenal for a while. I wrote the film when I was, I wrote the film sometime in 2018 or 19. I remember that. And it was just one of those things that I wrote and I tucked away, and really wanted to approach it, but never really, it's the journey of just being an artist and a writer, especially, you're constantly reevaluating your own material. You look at something today, you feel great about it. Tomorrow, you're like, this can be better. And then there's, the ever looming fear of failure. And so I kind of went through those, the ropes with Sapling. And it was when I met Lydia in the screen. So I attended a screenwriting conservatory last year at the New York Film Academy. And Lydia was there in the producing conservatory. And we just really hit it off. And I remember just chatting with her over a cup of coffee and telling her about this film that I wrote a while ago. And she was like, it's the perfect story. You need to put this out there. It's great. We can film it really quick. We can find ways to make it cheap. And it sort of, gave me that boost or that validation again to like chase the project. And I do feel like, the film also did come from a really personal place. It's about a game of truth and dare that, gets twisted on its head. And becomes a power play of consent between a young girl and her older mentor. And Anna tackles themes of just like harassment and sexuality in a way. And I feel like there is that time in every girl's life, like no matter how old you are or, what class you come from or, despite your race, religion, culture, upbringing, one of the unfortunate part and parcels of growing up as a woman is that you also realize that, I'm going to probably get objectified a lot, And so that experience, just like seeing that happen with someone young for the first time and them sort of clocking it in and processing it and, the frustrations of like not knowing how to act about it, your fight or flight kicks in. It was just all of that sort of put together. And when Lydia,
this came from a personal experience, not yours particularly, but from you somehow.
Yeah. No, it was my experience. I can fully, tell you that it did not exactly what happens in the film happened with me, but yeah, it did happen with me when I was much younger. And, you always look back at these things and it's like, oh shit, I should have really, sorry, pardon my French.
Don't worry. We should say you're multilingual too.
I am. Yes, I am originally from Mumbai. I moved here in 2022 and I speak 5 languages, including, bad French. But excusez-moi.
Yeah, but go ahead and finish what you were saying. I didn't mean to throw you off, but
all
I just thought it was funny.
Good. Yeah. So no, it's just looking back at these things. You always some people tend to like put themselves down, especially when you're younger and you don't know better and you're like, oh, I should have, done something, said something, taken a stand.
You scold yourself.
You scold yourself. You really put yourself through like this prism of what is expected, out of like an ideal person to. But like, and whilst all of that is great and, I fully support people having lesser tolerance for behaviors like that. I also think that in the moment when something like this is happening with you for the first time, the shock of it is so hard that you're not really able to comprehend it, much less react, right? And so that is also what I wanted to kind of like portray a little bit. And so Lydia basically came together and we just, banded a little team of people. And then came the big question of how are we going to finance this? And at that time, I had just moved on to Apple from Android. And I was like, this phone just has a great camera. I've been wanting to play with it for a long time. So let's just go out there and, try it and test it. And I knew that we wouldn't be doing something really crazy innovative with it. Like some of the films that I saw, Susie, in the festival were just mind blowing because of the kind of shot taking that they had and like sort of even opened me up, right, to like the possibilities with the phone. Mine was still a little bit more grounded in its shot taking. It really focused on the dramatic nerve of the actors,
It was a really good example of narrative.
Exactly. Yeah, you said it right. It was more narrative, and I was like, yeah, I don't mind testing it out. It did end up saving us a lot of time on
Mhm.
set, and I'm really happy with the result that we got. There was a lot of space there for me to go in and color correct and post. So yeah, basically just a lot of dynamic range, and the fact that we were able to move really fast throughout the day without needing to like change a lens or
Yeah.
change a card. But I mean, we also had, and Lydia will back me up on this, our fair share of troubleshooting that we had to do. And I think our main sort of issue on set was when we had to deal with uh, data storage. Data storage was just like,
Oh,
it came out because my phone was 256 GB and I'd cleared it up. But when you're filming 4K at
yes.
50 FPS, I think, yeah, we filmed 50 FPS. It takes up a lot of space and builds up pretty fast, multiple takes. And so it was just this whole iPhone transfer was taking forever, then iCloud, and then we lost like a solid hour and a half, which ended up being really costly. And we'd experimented a little bit with trying like an ND filter on the phone that actually belonged on an actual DSLR lens. And so we were trying to like
Nice.
cut the light and stuff. But while those experiments, were really like, gave me a lot of knowledge, they were not successful at all.
But
And
this is the time to experiment when you have a phone, right?
exactly, exactly. And so yeah, we made good on the next day. We, luckily our crew was available to come in a couple hours early. Our cast was available. So we reshot a little bit and the film is what the film is now.
You know, the okay, let me mention this one thing first before I go to the
Mhm.
aesthetics of the film, which were, well, I'll just say it. It was very cinematic,
Thank you.
and by cinematic, there's a lot of arguments. What is cinematic? And I'm like, well, it's everything, right? It's the sound, it's the audio, it's the visuals, the colors, and the flow of the film and the pacing. It's everything. Everything that you look on a film and you go, wow, this is a movie, right? When you don't,
Mhm.
the difference between video and a good movie, right? And
Yeah.
so one of the things that really raises the quality of your film too, it's not just the story, because the story can get lost if you don't have great performances. And
Hmm.
the two protagonists in your film were
Yeah.
incredibly good.
Yep.
And now that you're talking about this and you're saying, we were hurried and, loss of time and all these things happening, they held it together pretty well.
They did. It was honestly one of my big concerns with like every time there was a delay, and because we were filming the living room that you see in the film is also kind of the only space that the crew was all cramped in together.
Hmm.
And so I was trying to do my best to manage moods and keep the general, you know, energy high during these like troubles and like issues that we had on set, just because I did not want the actors' moods to get affected. They're
Right.
highly impressionable, and I wanted to maintain a certain level of inspiration. But I guess
But
it's
they were
just
in that same room, right? So they were,
yeah,
yeah, I
and
get you.
I really became like a mama bear. I was just trying to trying to save everything and everyone, but like I was, I was under expecting for they fully, surpassed all my expectations. They were thorough professionals, Mila and Nini both,
Yeah.
and we'd done ample rehearsals beforehand, and so they came in well. But that was the one thing that I did that sort of saved me during all of these multiple problems on shoot, was that I had rehearsed with my actors well enough for them to know exactly what my expectation was, so that whenever there was a delay, I was then not spending more time trying to give them direction. You know what I mean? Like if there's an issue with camera, I'm able to spend those next 20 minutes with my DOP trying to figure that out. And as soon as that's done, we can just move into take instead of me then
Nice.
having to speak with the actors. So we'd
Right.
like ironed out every single, beat of the thing. They had some amazing suggestions that were really little things, but and when again, it all contributes to just this whole the cinematic scape that you spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just have to give a shout out to like just how collaborative they were.
I think we need to talk about you a little bit here too.
Oh, don't I love
Because
that?
as a director, right, there's always a part of your heart that goes into every story you tell.
Yeah.
And that's very apparent with film because you can shape that story visually with audio, everything, right? And so I want to know where that originated from. And I think our listeners will benefit from that. Who is Dhwani Shah, really? Where did she come from that inspired you to do this kind of work that you're made to do?
Where did she come from? Where did she go? Where did she come from? Cotton Eye? No, never mind. Okay. So yes, I use humor to mask my true. I wouldn't know where to start. I think I have been really mesmerized by films and movies. Ever since I was young. I don't remember knowing otherwise. And it was always like, the weekends that we would go to watch a movie, that would be like the highlight of the week or the month that I would be leading up to that. And then once it's done, I'd be talking about that. And then, back then we had cable. And if you wanted to watch the new movie on TV, you'd have to sometimes wait a whole year before it came on TV. And then that would be an event on its own. And so I just remember a lot of these like exciting times in my childhood just revolving around movies. And then kudos to my parents and my mom who really, just put me through like all of these like dance classes and art classes and exposed me to have so much artistic and creative expression very early on in life that I was really in touch with my own innate voice. Am I making sense?
Yes.
And so by the time I came of age, I knew that I was, headed into the arts. I wasn't sure what. For a hot minute there, I was really into psychology. And I was discouraged by a few people to not go into it because I was also like, yeah, it's not a job where you're going to have good news
but
every day.
It plays a lot. It plays a lot into
Exactly.
storytelling and the film part of it.
Yep. So I kind of found my way back to psychology again through writing, because writing is all about character. And I've really been just like the superego, id, like all of those concepts are so like strongly fused with screenwriting. But yeah, so I just grew up like mesmerized by movies. And then I started with photography. I remember, my storytelling vein was, in like images and trying to capture. At the time, I was really into Henri Cartier-Bresson, who is this amazing photographer who came up with the decisive moment. He's a French photographer, and the decisive moment is just like it's a form of candid photography, where you basically capture a scene in that one specific moment where there is something extraordinary in the ordinary. And so I was enamored by that. And then that quickly turned into, photo turned into video. I was filming a lot of stuff. And then I started editing. And when I started editing is when I really was like, okay, now now I know how to make films, or now I can make films, because editing is the only true language of filmmaking, right? It's the multidisciplinary
It's the construction
art form
of the story.
Exactly. And if you think about it, everything else that goes into making a film has existed for so many more ages before it. Like cinematography comes from photography, comes from, fine arts and painting and compositions. Similarly, music dates many, many years behind. So does art and set design, and all of those disciplines are really old. But the one true language of filmmaking is editing. And
I like that.
yeah, and so editing really was it for me. That is when I played around for a little bit. I was doing a little bit of nonfiction. Um, I also was a part of, this uh, production house back home in Mumbai. They were like the Indian college humor. They made a lot of sketch videos and stuff. So I dabbled with that and eventually found my way to like narrative fiction. And I guess I just like to say that I'm a dreamer. So
Aw.
my heart resides in fiction. Yeah.
And your favorite is narrative then, huh?
Yeah, my favorite is hands down narrative. I feel like what narrative fiction lets you do is show the world the way it is, but also the way it should be.
Mm, I like
And
that.
movies growing up on me have had such a big influence in just shaping the way I think, feel, and my outlook on the world. And I know that that's something that I want to be a part of for somebody else. And if I'm being a little honest, then for me, because it's also selfish. It's like play, on most days, it's a lot of fun to be doing this.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's perspective and expression
Yeah.
um, from different and directors, right? They make films, different films, sharing different stories, but they all come from the connection to their perspective and their experience. There's always a little bit of that in each one. And I
Absolutely.
think, yeah, I really believe that's what makes a director stand out.
Yeah, I remember hearing this a long time ago. This is Greta Gerwig in an interview in her early days when she directed Lady Bird, and she said that in a way, a lot of the films that we make are conversations that we're having with our childhood selves, and
Oh,
that just always stuck with me. And I was like, yeah, I guess, we just, those are the best years. And for the rest of life, we just, go about trying to find ways to get back to that time.
right.
And for me, that's horror.
If you look at also your film,
Yeah.
it's a narrative story. It's deep,
Hmm.
and it's also educational. And I think a lot of films are like that, right?
You think that
Yep. Because I
when you
think
say,
when I say educational, I mean it's educating the audience to put themselves in somebody else's shoes.
yes, that I fully agree with. And I think that's the job of any piece of art is to present people with the question and then let them choose themselves. That's at least that's the kind of films that I resonate with most. When the filmmaker doesn't leave uh, on like any sort of moral high ground, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but instead lets the viewer decide what's best for them. Yeah, I like films that like when you leave the film, you leave with a question and
Yes.
not a moral, you know.
Yeah, I like that too. Well, it's not so much something I just like to do, like eating cake or something, um, but it's
We
something
can
that I
like
know,
that too. Sometimes we can just eat cake.
right? But it's something that happens. I notice with a lot of the films that make the biggest impression in me. First of all, you're captivated by it, and then even if it's a really long film, right? You're captivated by it. You're in their time, not in your time. And then when it's over, you're left with this, huh, that feeling. And then you spend hours, sometimes days,
Yeah.
sometimes even years where you're still going back to that story in that film. Maybe it's a particular scene, but whatever it is, it's always still, it becomes a part of you.
Is there a film or a scene like that for you?
Well, there's too many to count. There's so many films that I watched that have done that for me, you
That is
know?
true. Yep.
Yeah. And so, out of not insulting the ones that don't. I won't name them. but you know,
That is
there
an
are.
acceptable answer.
My grandmother, me growing up, my grandmother was in Spain, and in Spain, their TV shows were different than what they were here, right? It wasn't like cable TV.
Yep.
She was in love with Fred Astaire and Charlie Chaplin. I just remember those two. They were like, she was always like just lit up by them. And they're two completely different people.
I was about to say, but she has quite the range, and they're both great choices.
Yeah. And just in case you guys are wondering, no, I'm not a dancer. I cannot dance.
I disagree. I object. Have seen you.
You have never seen me dance.
I have seen you on the dance floor, guys. Do not believe a word out of this woman. She knows how to tango without two.
Oh, and tango to top that off, right? Oh, God. It's called breakdancing, what I do, because I just break everything around me.
Only breaking hearts, Susie.
Oh. So anyways, Charlie Chaplin, right, had this very romantic kind of relationship with performing and storytelling and filmmaking and just about everything that he was doing. He was a comedian, right, and an entertainer, but he was really deep, you know, and she used to, I think part of what she liked about him was that, you know, and there are films that he made. I remember being a little kid and watching the film. It's obviously very famous because none of his films are not, probably. But with the little kid, right, the little orphan kid. But it made me cry, and I was a kid. And, you know, there weren't that many movies that made me cry as a kid because, you know, your feelings, you don't connect to, you connect with your own emotions, right? But you're still trying to figure it out as a kid. I'm obviously talking to someone who knows psychology. And that effect was pretty deep. And that's one film that I remember, which I thought, to me, it was like, it made such a big impression on the power of storytelling. And it's an old black and white film. I don't even think it had, no, it didn't even have dialogue. I mean, the dialogue was just, you know, written on the cards, you know, in between the shots and the scenes. So it wasn't the talkie. It was before then. And it just, to me, that movie was one of the first movies that I watched as a kid. I remember watching it with my grandmother, and I remember, you know, crying and then looking at her, and she always, you know, she had a little tear thing, you know what I mean? But, there's films like that are very, very captivating.
I completely agree with you. I mean, he is an icon of filmmaking and so good at blending comedy with just like social commentary. And even the thing you said about, you know, resonating with you as a child. I feel like when we're younger and before our, you know, left brains have fully developed and we have a sense of being able to analyze and logically, you know, like rationalize something, we're just all emotion, right?
Yeah.
So I think you just somehow those emotions end up staying with you for a much longer time. And even now when I'm writing my process, I try to like, even though I've, you know, studied screenwriting, and what that teaches you is the craft, and you can really break down the form, and there's structures and there's tools at your disposal to help you make a scene better. I think what people tend to forget is that is just the craft. It's not the art. And the art is innate. It comes from inside you. And for that to happen, you have to, again, go back to that childlike sense of just, you know, giving into your impulses and imagination. And I fully forgot what point I was trying to close it in on.
I think I'm also connecting it to what you said earlier about playing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you have to play with it. You have to enjoy what you're doing. If you don't do that, it's gonna come out to be what we have now, which is just formulaic, films that are made to make a profit.
Generic.
They're not exactly, they're not human stories. Yeah.
Like AI stories.
AI stories. God, I hope that there's a certain film festival that happened in New York not so long ago that had a whole panel and a whole showcase of AI stories, short films.
I found that. I found that on Film Freeway
Yep,
when this thing was getting bigger or more popular.
yep,
And I found that and I thought, really?
yep. We're just all gonna stop doing what we're doing because we're gonna give space to AI.
I think people experiment and people like to come out with something new and just sort of throw that wrench in there. But I think when it comes to how we connect as humans, it's the stories that connect us, but they're told the reason they connect us and why we connect to the stories is because it's going from human to human.
I agree with you. That is profound and perfect and here to stay.
Yes, exactly. And that's a whole, I wouldn't say that's our purpose in
We are
life.
passing on information.
Yes,
It's,
we are.
yeah.
Yeah.
On a cellular level, it's your DNA trying to live outside of you, and that's the information that's trying to survive. And I guess on a philosophical level, it's the stories.
That's how we process everything.
Yeah. Yep.
You know,
That is how
I
we
remember sitting in math classes, and I'm no good at math, guys. It's not my thing. And I'm like, I don't get that. And I remember the instructor one time saying, well, okay, let me put it to you as a story. And I finally tuned in. I was like, okay, if you put it to me as a story, I might actually understand this. You know what they were
Yeah.
saying.
My favorite subject in school was history, and that's mostly and English, and mostly because they just encompass like a lot of literature and stories. And I was never a math girl either. I
Well,
do not know how to calculate the surface area of a polygon, and I am doing okay in life. Okay. Just about getting by.
you know, I have this saying since you listened to the podcast. I haven't said this in a long time, but I
Yeah.
don't know if you've heard it or not. But I always say, you know, the money in the world is really just a number, right? It's a numbers game,
Uh-huh.
which is math. That's what brought it up, anyways. But there's one thing that's more powerful than money in the world, and it comes to this. So basically, you've watched The Walking Dead, right? Ever? Okay.
Yeah, I haven't fully watched it, but yes, I'm familiar.
Well, I mean, it could go on God knows how long, so I get you. so, so in The Walking Dead, I think this was really evident because it was I was used to watching films, you know, the zombie films, and I've always enjoyed those. But The Walking Dead was a series, right? So every week you had this number of characters, and there was the short stories, you know, within each episode, but they also told the long story, the big picture. And money is worth nothing in The Walking Dead. I mean, it's just nothing. It doesn't buy you your existence or a way to survive. But you know what does? Stories. And what I figured out was, well, what I observed was, so you had always had a new character come along, someone who they didn't know in this community they were building. No one knew this person, and they automatically had a distrust for anyone new because you kind of have to.
Right.
But then you always have that moment somewhere in that episode where this character and maybe one or two of the other regulars have to spend time together alone for a length of time. And when they do that, they start to share their stories. And when they share their stories, they become more human-like and more accepted.
Absolutely.
And that's how they're brought in to the community with trust.
Yep.
It's not
And
money, it's stories.
100%, I believe that. And it's interesting you say that, because this was, well, when I first started writing screenwriting, that was like way back in 2017. And this whole conversation that I was having about, what makes a character relatable. Um, why do we tend to like certain characters more than the others? And I realized that the thing that makes a character relatable is their vulnerabilities. When they finally share the side of you, their side with you, which is not the bravest, not the most perfect, not the shiniest. Maybe they have a chink in their armor. And that is what draws you to them, because, you and I could sit here and talk about our achievements for the whole time. But it's only when one of us says, oh, the other night I was feeling a little unmotivated and, feeling a little low, is when the other person's like, oh, yeah, I feel like that as well. Because our weaknesses and our vulnerabilities really make us human.
Yes.
And yeah. So
and we connect. We connect through those stories. We connect through our emotions, our everything.
Absolutely. And so I feel like, yeah, that's fully how psychology and filmmaking is so intertwined, because in order for you to give birth to those flaws and patterns within another person, you have to reflect on how they were birthed inside of you first, to really do justice to building their character. And it is an ever evolving, process that I just love and hate more than anything else.
But that's how you engage and connect with your audience as a film.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's what makes a difference. I think that your film Sapling really resonated with people. And it also brings a question to some people, like, have I ever done that to someone? Have I ever made someone feel so hurt? Because a lot of people are pretty stoic during that situation, and then they walk away, and then you're thinking everything's fine. And then you go, well, gosh, was I being pushy? Was I being, did I say something wrong? I mean, there's two sides to this, to your story, from both characters. And I really, and I think that's part of what made your story, your film, so good. And, you overcame every single obstacle. You also had really good audio. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have always believed that the, big distinguisher between an amateur film and a professional film is the audio. That's what sets it apart. And it was also one of the first things that I learned on my first ever professional job when I was 19. And I made a little boo-boo when I was making this behind the scenes video, and the audio was terrible. And I failed to impress somebody that I really wanted to. And so that for me was like my big moment of learning, like, oh no, I need to teach myself how to, at that time I was using a Zoom recorder with lapel mics. Mm-hmm. And that just sort of, the whole approach with Sapling was to keep everything as professional as possible, including stuff like, we had a makeup artist, we had, lights, we also had a bunch, we had someone come in and consult with us on art, and a fantastic colorist and all of that. So we really wanted to treat it like a film shoot where we've just got a different camera. It's not lesser than, but yeah, everything else was pretty much, just standard industrial, practice.
See, and that was my point when I first launched this. A lot of, maybe some of you who are listening were one of these people that would contact me and email me and ask, hey, what about sound? Does it have to come from the phone? Hey, what about, what about this? And what about that? And it was like, hey, guess what? Just a camera. Just replace the camera with the phone. Everything else, you do
Stay
the same
Megan.
way. Like you don't have to edit on the
Yep.
phone. You can use a crane to do your crane
Yep.
shots if you want to, as long as you bring your phone into it.
Absolutely.
That
And I'm
was the whole point of it.
just like with video, the fact that you can replace, a really big film camera and use your iPhone, you can do the same with sound. You don't always need a giant boom mic to get the best sound. There's so many options on the market right now where you can get professional sounding audio for like really easy, really small devices and like really accessible softwares that can do that for you. I think it's just a little bit about ensuring that you have the right intention as you go in for the shoot, because a lot of people just mistake. I've also noticed this, that a lot of times when people call action and then call cut, they will immediately rush to watch the video playback,
Oh yeah.
but not a lot of people check what the audio came out like. And then it's like you're in post and your editor tells you, oh, that was, a giant truck moving by. So this cut that you like is not going to work because, you should have just done it again. And yeah, I think it's every bit as important, especially for mobile filmmakers, because you want to basically prove people, wrong with the whole idea that you need big fancy equipment to make a good film. You want to do that with the things you have in your hand, but you also have to ensure that the quality is comparable.
And if you want to impress somebody who does use, $30 million to make a film, that you can show them how well this scales up into that, because you've learned so much of all those little intricate details.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
even
your
know how to
calling
speak.
card. Intricate.
Intricate.
Intricate. Can you say it 5 times?
Well, I probably could, but not tonight.
Okay, we'll save it.
On a
We'll
different
save it
day.
for a different podcast, the one that people don't know about.
It'll be the season opener.
Season opener. I love it.
I think that your audio was really good. I think the acting really carried the film and the story, which was really important. And that's kudos to your actors, but also to you as a director, because that's a big job. We don't get to talk too much in this podcast about directing. Why don't you speak to that a little more? Because I know that you're an experienced director. You've also got quite a number. What is your website address really quick? Oh, it's Dhwani Makes Films.
There you go. Yep.
.com.
Yes. That is right.
Yeah. So share a little more about your directing. And what I was going to say about your website is that you've got a lot of your work is there. So
yeah, I would say a good majority of my work is there. I think directing is not something that you can, like, I don't think you just learn how to direct. I think you become a director eventually if you just keep upskilling, on every single job. And what I mean by that is being a film director, and I'm still learning myself, right? It's not like I know it all, but I do know that being a film director, believe it or not, Susie, I know what it looks like, but I am still a little child.
Susie takes headphones off and walks away.
The end, fade to black.
Right.
Cue credits. Okay. No, I think it's really important for me as a director. The thing that growing up, the directors that I was around, I observed a lot, about them. And the thing that I liked in my favorite directors was that anyone from any department could come up to them with any question or concern or comment, and they'd be able to talk to them in their language. You know what I mean? So when a colorist is coming to you and complaining about, the exposure, you're not just saying you're using, because I've seen some directors even, use really vague language like, oh, make it, dim or make it duller. But speak to them in their language. Do you know what scopes are? Do you understand picture profiles? Do you understand ND filters? I'm still speaking really basic language, but it's knowing that, when I work with my sound designer. I'm not just, saying, "Ooh, I want a spooky sound here," or I want a little scare over there. I have to speak in, their
The
language, which is
jargon.
exactly the jargon. I want a drone here, or, let's have an accent there, something. So it's basically, setting yourself up to a level where you're able to direct all of those departments. And that is what being a director is not that you are the best person on set, but you are the a person, the a number one, you're the person with the vision, and number two, you're equipped to guide the rest of the crew to do their best. And so yeah, you just got to know, not the ins and outs, but you definitely need to know a fair amount of cinematography. You need to know about lensing. You need to know camera settings, frame rates. You need to know about data storage. You need to know about audio, tracks, bit rates. You need to know editing. You need to have an opinion on fashion. You need to have an opinion on makeup. You need to educate yourself about art and set design, and action. So if you have action happening, stunts, and safety on set and those sort of things. And I think one of the biggest joys of directing for me is working with actors, and just they are the instrument to tell the story. And directing actors is, I think, perhaps one of the hardest things to do, because how do you communicate what, and especially for me as a writer director, I have a very set vision in mind. And then it's just finding the right words to communicate that without making it clinical. Like, you don't want your direction to be so specific that you don't leave room for the actor to bring their own magic to it, to bring their own flair to it. So how do you create an environment where you're getting what you want, without it becoming like, the rule book to play by? That is really fascinating.
Like robotic, almost like a robotic performance with all the little, yeah.
The worst thing that you can do when directing an actor is to tell them how to act. And this was told to me very graciously by some of my acting friends.
Yes.
When I was very young.
And, it's like they're the expert. You hire them to act.
Exactly.
And, it's like some companies that they hire people straight out of the university who have learned this one particular thing and they are all over that. Then they bring them into their company and say, forget all that. You need to do it the way we do it.
Exactly. I completely agree with you on that. So yeah, you're kind of like balancing a really fine line. And, more often than not, it just involves a lot of overseeing and managing the creative aspects of the film. Like, you have to, in equal parts, be like the collaborator, where people feel like they can come up to you with ideas, and also the decision maker, where you don't leave a lot of loose ends, because people can come up, but the final call is yours, and you need to make that call with, just like real intention. There's just a lot of problem solving. More often than not, directing is just answering questions, and
intention too, right? Like the intention, keep your intention. I've worked on some films where the directors really were not experienced, but the AD was. And so sometimes you have an AD that's overpowering your film, and you leave it all up to them, and then your vision is gone and your film doesn't work out, and you can't put your finger on it, and that's why.
I've seen a lot of films sort of like tank, or like sort of lose their original, a lot of their original magic in the production process, because you just get so preoccupied with technical things that you forget the vision and the tone and, the emotional vein of the whole thing, which is easy to lose sight of when you have, a lot of pressure on you. But yeah, I think it's just, directing is just a lot of problem solving, and any minute that is spent on set making a decision or deciding a new thing is a minute lost. I'm the kind of director who comes in like super prepared. I have my little Bible, I have my shot list, and I have my, little scene Bibles, and I have like little previs if I have the time to film that. Um, and I feel like that sort of preparation allows me to improvise on set, because then it's like I know what I want. I've already communicated with everyone what I want. And now that that's out of the way, whenever there is time, we have the space for discussing what could be, which we wouldn't have if we were making decisions or only approaching these things for the first time then. So yeah, I'm all for, pre-production and being super duper prepared when you land on set.
I feel like the other day I posted somewhere, I forgot where, one of the social media things. And I said that to have a screenplay, right? Everybody reads a screenplay differently. Your AD is gonna read that in a different way than your script supervisor, than your actors who are performing, and everyone reads it a little different. And the way that I refer to that, trying to come up with an analogy for that, is because a screenplay is like a frame, and it's up to the director to fill it up with the picture.
Yep. I agree with you. The screenplay is just a bouncing board, and that's why it's called a screenplay. Like, as a screenwriter, I don't want people to read my screenplay. I want them to watch the film I write.
Yeah.
It's meant for a few people. And I feel like a sign of a good director is like, a good director does not necessarily need to know the ins and outs of screenwriting or how to write, but needs to know how to read a screenplay. Same goes for producers. They need to know how to read a screenplay. And I say that because, a lot of times I've seen producers just like take a scene and butcher the meaning and, it's set in their apartment, but, we have access to this gorgeous waterfall location that's giving us there's a tax, rebate thing on it. So let's just place it there. And I'm just like,
oh, they're drinking water. Can they just drink Pepsi so that we can, right?
They just be like, swiping on their phone, but it's this specific app that's going to pay us, even though it's in no way related to the story at all. And it's just like, oh, you're just making one giant ad film.
In video production, when I was drafting up the contracts, one of the things that I made sure that I included was like, one person is in charge in your company for this video production, and no, your kid cannot be the, you name it, fill in the blanks.
My God, if I started telling you stories about the feedback that I've received over the years, we're going to be here all week.
I want to talk a little bit about how you blocked the film.
I blocked it?
Well, because, okay, so, like, I don't want to give it away, right? Mm-hmm. But you were kind of sneaky in a few scenes with intent, especially when you get towards the end. The way that it is framed, something important happens that you don't realize until the very end of the film. Mm-hmm. And you did that I thought that was a little bit of, genius, right? Just the way that you did that, because had that not been shot in the way that it was shot, right, in the way that it was framed.
Yeah.
I mean, you could read it on the screenplay, but you wouldn't know until you're there on set directing that and making that happen. Yep. And you had to know that and have practiced things like, without giving away, because we're going to include a link, guys, to the film so you can watch it on her website. Okay. Give you those hits.
Thank you.
And so without giving that away, can you speak a little bit about that kind of preparing, especially with a mobile phone camera? Because I mean, you can do almost anything with it, right? You can
Yeah.
position it almost anywhere. You can do movements with it, and things that are harder to do with a bigger camera.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For me, when I was approaching this film, I really wanted it to be the actor's film. So I wanted to keep the cinematography and the shot blocking very grounded in a sense that, I don't know, it's like I just immediately like movies from the 80s like jump out to me, that aesthetic of a whole conversation, but it's, just two shots of them talking, sometimes a whole wide. And I'm talking about films like, I don't know, Kramer versus Kramer, off the top of my head, or Tootsie, like back in the day. It used to be simple cinematography, and all your focus is on the conflict at hand. The actors carry the tension, from a scene to another. There's a lot of naturalistic,
Dialogue.
yeah, a lot of dialogue. There's a lot. The lighting is very natural, and it's really
Funny that you just brought up Kramer versus Kramer, because it's somewhere. I think it's Netflix or something, and I just watched it last weekend.
yeah. Yeah, it's a fantastic film. I mean, doesn't get better.
Oh, I
mean,
was
the scene where-
crying.
right? I mean, just that whole little monologue in the courtroom when he's making the French toast. It's just like
The kid and him during those
and
last few scenes.
you watch those scenes, and there's maybe 4 or 5 different shots in it. And again, the motivation to cut from shot to shot is always just a change in beat. It's never, a jazzy, camera movement or a super fancy shot. No, it's like the focus is entirely on the character or the environment. And there's very often, wide shots. And that's what you're going to be focusing on in this film. And that's what I wanted to, that was my intention as well with Sapling, was to just, have it be an actor's film. And the cinematography, well, I kind of tried to do this thing where like I wanted it to reflect her state of mind. So in the beginning in the film, there are a lot of block shots where it's just, just static shots, no camera movement.
Yeah.
It's all very dramatic and very grounded. There's few subtle pans and tilts, and slowly as the conflict heightens, there's a little bit more movement in the shot, and eventually she's, as it hits its peak, and she's in a different location, and there's a little bit of movement. She's walking. Then we go handheld. Then there's a little bit of like shakiness that comes in because that is her state of mind as well at that time. And the thing that you were talking about, this whole little foreshadowing, that is, that's just a little plant and payoff. I feel like the one, I like leaving in little Easter eggs, I guess, for the audience to like come back to like, oh yeah, like, it's, my screenwriting teacher called it the inevitable, I forget. It was really nice. It's like, it's the inevitability, that thing was supposed to happen. If you look back, it was supposed to happen all along. And it's just
like the Sixth Sense or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So when we're writing, it's a plant and payoff on the paper. And that's exactly what's happening here, which is a plant and payoff. And I mean, the very famous, there's an example, which is from Anton Chekhov, one of his short stories, where like a gun is introduced in Act 1 and it's going to go off in Act 3. So it's like, it's just those subtle tricks that you employ as a filmmaker to kind of misdirect the audience, but then come back to it. And people pick up on these things. I think one of the other big misconceptions in the industry is that audiences are stupid and people don't understand stuff, but that's just so far untrue. I think as long as you make your film, make your film idiot proof, but keep it accessible.
Yeah.
So that people can enjoy, having a conversation with the thing that they're watching. Because a lot of times I'm watching a film and I'm like, oh, I am sure that that's what's going to happen. But then I still keep watching the film, not because I already have the answer, but because you want to find out how, right? And when it turns out like that, you're like, oh yeah, I feel good. Like people are like, just because something was predictable does not mean that it was bad. Like that's the whole reason we keep rewatching the same things again and again, because we enjoy watching how the thing happens. And yeah, I got to exercise a little bit of that with Sapling, but I feel like I do that a lot with like all of my work, especially the feature films that I've written. I have
Yes.
3 in the bank now, and one that's, taking shape.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And yeah, I feel like I'm recognizing a bit of a pattern in my own work, which is that I am kind of, things are just cyclical in my work. Things just kind of come back to where they started, and there's a loop that's like always in motion.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, that's just a part of me that I'm still sort of learning and engaging with every day.
See, guys, this is the brains behind the film. It trying to prove sometimes to people that mobile filmmaking isn't something that's just done on a street corner, and the whole concept of it, and then it's just thrown together because it's on a phone.
Oh, absolutely
Um,
not.
exactly,
There was a
and
whole team. We had like 20 people on Sapling.
mhm. Yeah, and that doesn't mean that you can have that because you have 20 people on film is going to be a great film.
Yep.
Again, I bring you to Dhwani. She's got the brains of a storyteller. She understands it fully. She sees the connection between the emotions and the character building in her story and how important that is. And I think it makes actors, well, I wouldn't say make, like, you know what I mean, like you're talking them into it. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that when they see that in you as you're communicating with them, telling them about the film and the story, they probably feel your passion for storytelling and they want to definitely be a part of your projects. And that's really
Yeah.
important as a director to build that kind of rapport with not only your audience, but the industry itself, the people that are going to be a part of it. And you shot this on a phone, and, you know,
Yeah.
um, the respect, like when I launched this film festival, when I first was getting ready to do it was years before I did, but it
Mm.
wasn't there. And some of my friends said, well, just do it on a website. I was
Yeah.
like, no, it has to. This is crazy. This is like, this isn't just a film festival. This is a whole movement. And if I am going to have filmmakers like you,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
need to prove to you that you will have the same respect that you're used to when you're using other cameras. So the films have to be on a big screen. I have to roll out the red carpet, and I
Mm-hmm.
have to present it like that to the world so that the right people will want to be a part of it, you know?
Absolutely. And I mean, I tip my hat to you. You did such a fantastic job of, I mean, just the effort you put into ensuring that everything was so well organized. There was a schedule, we even had a photographer. It is one of the best film festivals I've attended, where it was the perfect number of people. We all, like you said, it was like camp. We all kind of got to know each other. Got to spend 2 days just talking about films. The view wasn't all that bad, and
It was
and yeah,
horrible. It was horrible. Shush.
it was, yes, guys. Nobody sign up for this film festival. We're gonna be going every year. We want it all to
San
ourselves.
Diego is ugly.
Oh man, yeah, no, it was a great time. And yeah, I have been to some of these other film festivals that don't pay a lot of attention to the kind of, speakers they have or the projectors that they set up. And then it's more of a painful experience sitting there and watching your piece of work that you've poured your heart and soul into like be butchered on screen, and like people not able to hear or see things clearly. It's just like one of the most painful experiences for a filmmaker. But the fact that you put in, so much effort to just, and even like you were so thorough with the communication, ever from like the selection process to us getting there to after. I have only great things to say. It was just one of the best experiences.
Wow, I don't even think that'll fit in a box.
We
Um, I'm very grateful
try.
for you saying that, and I'm so glad that you got to experience it. I remember our first emails together. From the very beginning to the
Mm-hmm.
very last.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the one thing that gets easier for me to say each year is to look at the audience and literally say it. It's something that comes from my heart, and I know because you were there, you realized it was true. It's not like, the
Yep.
LA producer that and some people that say it a lot, but it's just something they just say, and that
Right.
is how
Connection.
much I
Yep.
love you. I love this community, and
Aw,
I will bust my chops, as they say, right, for you guys. And what you were just
you're
describing
too
just
kind.
reminded me, it really is, as Botello Productions, this is the biggest production each year for me.
Yeah, and I mean it's worth it. I left that film festival feeling so inspired, which was perfect because I was heading into like a really challenging and a tough shoot. And so I was just like I had my spirits high, and you know, artists are
What about
nothing
that red
without.
carpet?
Yeah, right? My
That
God,
was
those
like such
photos
a
got
big
so many
show.
likes. Yeah. We had cosplayers, which was so
Yes.
unexpected, but like it was a fantastic evening.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, some of the people I met there, I'm still in touch with. We're all linked on Instagram, and it's a great community.
Well,
All
you
thanks to
know,
you.
th- well, okay, it's an empty box. It's like building up a stage, and there's no stars on that stage. So without
Mhm.
you guys, it's really just a frame without the picture, right?
Oh, thank you.
So let me say this, Dhwani. It doesn't matter if you make a film or not for next year's film festival.
Mhm.
You need to come back.
100%. I'm marking my calendar.
Yes.
I'm
April
gonna block it
25th,
off for the whole month
26th,
just to be safe.
27th. Yeah, because,
Wait,
you
can you say
really,
those dates again?
yes, April 25th, 26th, and 27th.
Done. Done.
That's 2025, guys, because we're not
It's
doing,
also the
yeah.
28th, 29th, and the 30th for me because there is no way that I'm coming to California and then leaving. That I need a week at least, minimum,
Yeah.
minimum. And hopefully, I've sold a film or two by then, so I can afford, just a couple more of those tacos that you have.
Yes. You guys had a really good time. I appreciated that so
Yeah, we had
much.
a blast. We had a blast.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you think we may have missed? I mean, I do want you to
Um,
name the next film that you're going to make.
Right. Yeah. So the next project, the one that I currently have in the pipeline in post production, is a horror proof of concept for a feature film. So it's a short film. And we still haven't locked a title, but the tentative title is Tasveer. Tasveer means photograph in Hindi. And
Oh.
it's an English language film. It's set in New York. It's about this young taxi driver, and she is just going about her business when this mysterious, creepy stranger enters her life, gets really creepy, and then leaves a camera behind that begins haunting her. So she's being
Oh.
haunted by a camera, and the camera is in itself a metaphor for male gaze and being stalked and watched and seen and surveilled. Like,
I
most of
love
us
it.
have probably at some point felt.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds
Thank
really
you.
interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, so that one's exciting. We're fingers crossed, hoping to do a successful film festival run with that, and that sort of becomes my break into making the feature. Um, and yeah, that's what the future looks like for me. I have one feature in the pipeline and two more in the bank, and just hustling hard every day, staying up late, waking up early to bring home the dough.
Directors are the hustlers.
Yes, ma'am. Or so they
Awesome.
say.
Yes. Well, you're a rock star, so
Aw.
I'm really grateful for you, and it's an honor to have you finally on the show. I know you're going to be back.
I hope you're too kind. This was so much fun.
Yes, well, definitely. You shared a lot that our listeners are going to benefit from. And don't forget to follow her on Instagram. Check out the show notes because all the links are there. She's on Instagram, LinkedIn. She's got her website, which will have all of those as well. And then don't forget to watch Sapling. We're including that link in there. And connect with Dhwani anytime. You're like,
Please
wait,
do.
unless I'm on
even
set.
if it's 4 a.m., connect with me, guys. I am I'm just here like a hawk awake on my phone for y'all to reach out. I want to help.
I want to go someday to New York, hang out with you and a few of my other friends that I have over there.
That's happen.
It's been a thing. Every time I think I'm going to go to New York, I'm not able to. I was stuck there at the airport one time, and I got to ride the shuttle or the little train or whatever because it's such a huge airport, and I'm looking out at the buildings and stuff, and I'm like, but like, I can't believe I still don't have enough time to get out there and look up at a skyrise building and just like lose myself and fall on my butt.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do have to admit, though, I am in Jersey City. So I am just, detached by the Hudson by a little bit. But I like my little, quiet area. And then I can go into the city whenever I want.
Yeah.
But New York is the best. There's nothing like it. Like one of the best parts about like being in the city is that, like you said, there's so many like huge buildings and so many people. And sometimes when I'm walking the streets, I feel like I could disappear at any, like it makes you feel so little.
I
and
love
the fact
that.
that you could disappear and it would still go on, nothing would change. And that weirdly makes me feel reassured because it makes me feel small, but in a great way. Like my problems don't matter as much as I build them up to be. Like I'm a small part of something big. Sometimes you build yourself up so much in your head and you make yourself the center of the universe and there's nothing bigger than the issues you have on hand that day. And then in moments like that, when you're outside, it's like, oh no, I'm just, a little inconsequent part. And that
I love that. I love that. I've been in big cities before where that happens, but New York is full of art and people are, characters, like real characters, just everywhere. And to me, that's exciting. I'm sure some of you are from New York and you're saying, Susie, you're not, you're you're romanticizing it, but whatever, invite me.
Takes one to know one.
Yes. Well, you remember Vincenzo DeCio from our film festival who won the smartphone photo contest. He's also from New York as well.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. Oh, I remember the photo he took in the subway. Yeah.
Yes.
Black and white.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Look, that image still stayed with me. I guess that image would be a perfect example of the decisive moment that I was speaking about earlier.
There you go. See how everything kind of comes back into a circle, guys.
I tell you, I'm obsessed with the loop.
The loop?
Yep.
All right. We'll say goodbye to our listeners.
Thank you so much. I hope you all had a great time listening to this and have a fantastic day, night, week, month, and year.
You get a big virtual hug.
Yay. So do you.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Or goodbye.
And goodbye.